did everything we could. There's absolutely no way we could save this robotic patient. Let's just call it quits. No. As my years as a mechanic, I won't give up on this patient! Breathe, goddamn you! Yes! Yes! He's alive! He's alive! Sweet Barovus! He's alive!
Whew! It feels like it's been ages since I did something with this channel, and yet I've been busy all the same. Oh well, Sweeps is back again, boys and girls, and I hope you guys are ready for some fun. You know, as a DM, there's a lot we have to do. We have to be responsible for our players, make sure the world is alright, and of course, the biggest issue we need to consider is the thing called balance. This can range from the monsters, the items and loot, and even what we allow the player characters to do. Don't get me wrong, I love to give my characters superpowered loot and wacky hijinks, but you need to be able to balance that boost when you do give them something, and I'm not opposed to saying no whenever one of my players asks me for something that I think may or may not break the game. Well, even more than it already is. However, like ordering too much wasabi on your sushi, things can go way too far, way too quick. And sometimes a DM can go a bit too far with restrictions, especially when they take things back. As such, our story today talks about such a DM, and so, with my lateness being ignored, let's begin! Okay, I don't know if anyone will find this in the D&D group or not, but this is starting to become a little frustrating on our part. Also, first time posting, so if there's anything that should be tagged, let me know. Or if this isn't a horror story because we are in the before session 0 phase isn't gone wrong enough, I would happy to take it down. Oh, trust me dude, this stuff can happen way before session 0. So, this person, let's call him Joe, is playing another D&D campaign with me, my sister, and a mutual friend of ours. And Joe invites us into a D&D campaign that he wants to run as DM. He advertises it as a Fae-centric Fae-Wild experience, and that we would be free to pick any wacky character or Fae from folklore in general, and that we will be starting at level 1. So we join in and Joe invites the other two friends and our mutual friend in too. We'll call the other two Perry and Grizz. Now, one of the other two asked Joe if he was sure on folklore, to which Joe said, yes, all folklore, even cryptid. So I said I wanted to play a Ropen character, and everyone else chose other various creatures. Joe gets very uncomfortable with all of us, and then DMs me that if I make a Ropen anthropomorphic character, they will let me play it. I was like, okay, cool. And so I essentially just took an Aarakocra and reskinned to be a pterosaur, even choosing a pterosaur species known for having opposable thumbs, and gave it a story about how it died, but glowing magic mushrooms took over its body and brought it back to life, which was supposed to be a play on the fact that the character was a druid of the Circlospores. The magic fungus was only brought up as a reason to why my character glowed. Other than that, average Aarakocra. And I figured that since we are in the Fey Wild, magic fungus isn't the weirdest shit. And who knows, if the DM wants, we could have a cool story beat with the mushrooms. Joe then tells me they can't handle that and doesn't like the image that it makes in his head and tells me to just can the character and do a character I talked about earlier. I said okay and made a subspecies of Heracon that is Almirage, spaced one. And because I like the Pathfinder Almirage better, I asked Joe if I was allowed to petrify and Joe allowed it. But when I mentioned that this character would be looking to prove her warrior spirit as a fighter, and the only way her subspecies accepts, killing a dragon, Joe again tells me not to just play that part of the character. I get kind of bummed because the Almirage mythos has them being connected to a dragon killer, but fine, whatever. Then comes my sister, and now she comes in as a black elk paladin. And the whole point of her character is that she is like the opposite of the unicorn and brings an end to the eternal life within the Fey Wilds when it overreaches from its position. Her character was a reskinned centaur essentially, and at first, even though Joe wasn't pleased, he led in the campaign. Now, my sister's creature is in base D&D as a Fey, and her paladin class is also by the books and was a non-homebrewed oath. I think they were Oath of Vengeance. The character is gone now, so exact deals is hard to remember. Point is, my sister made it as basic and true to the source books as she could aside from the wacky species. Well now, when we were just about to have session 0, Joe comes back to my sister and tells her that the character is no longer accepted because Joe can't see her character as anything other than the group's pet. which pissed off my sister because her character is a valid mythological creature with the ability to speak and talk, and animals being able to talk with high intelligence is not that weird anyway in the Feywilds. Alright, I know we still got quite a bit of story left, but I wanted to come in and say something. DMs, if you can hear me, do not do this. Specifically when you've already reached the point of agreeing to what your players can play and you don't bring up any issues when session 0 starts up, you should not put this stunt out right before the session. If you do have an issue with the character, you'll have had plenty of time to talk to the character about it before session 0. Doing it just before the session is a bad idea. Not only because you're going to have to waste time making up a new character for the player, but you're also going to have a pretty miffed player throughout the entire session as well. Session 0 is basically a blessing in disguise, as you can have the PCs test the character's abilities, concepts, and get somewhat of an idea of how the characters will be played and acted with. Then, after the session 0, that's when you discuss your issues with your player. Not only do you get to see if your concerns are founded, but then you have all the time in the world until the actual session 1 to either fix the issues or create a different character. That being said, I find this logic that Joe is using to be very weird. The group pet. I don't understand this logic right here, especially when later we learn that they actually will have a grizzly bear. If anything, that seems more like a group pet than anything else. So my sister then decides to make a fairy wizard with a blink dog familiar, and Joe immediately messaged them saying the familiar better not be aggressive and constantly attacking others. And my sister is annoyed again because not only is already a familiar, but it also has an intelligence of 10 and is a lawful neutral creature, which is literally the same intelligence as many humanoids, and no one is questioning if any of the other characters are feral beasts. Then Joe says that the blink dog is too OP due to its teleport ability. For those who do not know, the whole damn point of a blink dog is that they teleport, and they can only teleport roughly 30 to 40 squares at most. Only in visual range, so no teleporting around corners, and the only bonus their teleport gives them is that teleporting away doesn't leave them open for attacks of advantage. My sister's upset and calls this BS because the familiar only has 13 HP in total, which is only 3 more than her level 1 wizard, and the creature is a challenge rating of 1/4, meaning equal to a level 1 character. And a blink dog can only teleport once per 4 to 6 turns. This is also under the restriction of it being a familiar, which means that if she wants her character to attack, the blink dog can't attack. Joe at this point says that the blink dog can stay if it can only teleport after a short rest, which pisses my sister off because Joe had a homebrew dryad satyr race that could teleport like dryads without almost any of the same limits. And in another D&D campaign, Joe plays an anthro slime that was made by a science experiment where all other slime types were mixed into it, so this character literally resists everything pretty much, every element, etc. And Joe is currently playing in my sister's campaign as a red dragon centaur-esque creature that keeps bragging about how they are totally immune to all fire and can sit on lava. And we are now both pissed because we look at the other characters that were accepted into the campaign, and Perry is a goddamn Paraton, and Grizz is a damn grizzly bear, straight up. How come a grizzly bear and a Paraton, neither of which are anthros as far as we can tell, are allowed, but we are being chewed out at every step for our characters? I understand that the DM is allowed to say what goes into their game and what doesn't, but for a game that was advertised to be free and allowing wacky race choices, this feels one-sided and unfair. Like, first off, why is a Paraton allowed but my Ropin and my sister's character isn't? Why is a bear allowed in, but a blink dog might be a vicious creature even as a familiar? It feels hypocritical and like we aren't allowed the same freedoms and characters as the other players. What do you guys think? Is our frustrations with this situation understandable? P.S. Joe didn't dislike my character for being a reskinned Aarakocra, as Joe would later say that he loves Aarakocra and cool aerial combats. So Joe disliking my character had nothing to do with the fact that they could fly, and even if it did, again he allowed a goddamn Paraton character in, who by the way can also fly because Paraton. Whew! LP, not only do I find your frustrations understandable, but also relatable. The thing is about being a DM is, as I said, balance is key. But here's another thing, being fair to your players. I can't begin to understand what's going through Joe's mind with making these choices, especially when he himself is willing to take advantage of all the additional perks in other people's games. Granted, just because one DM will allow something, that doesn't mean other DMs will. In my group, we have a couple of DMs. I tend to be the more relaxed and freely giving stuff to my players kind of DM, while a few others tend to be a bit more tight-knit with the rules, and there's nothing wrong with that. That being said, the issue here is Joe's supposed double standard. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think it's right for Joe to do this sort of thing as well, He seems to be treating OP and his sister very unfairly when they give him different concessions. However, and this isn't to doubt OP's word or anything, we only have one side of this story. Now, I'm not saying that Joe is automatically in the right, but with every story you read on Reddit or online, a healthy bunch of skepticism is never a bad thing. Now, if the post is to be 100% believed, then the best move is to talk to the DM about this. Don't come in hot and make sure you voice yourself as politely as possible. And if the DM is unwilling to compromise with you after that, or you feel you might be slighted, then the best thing is to talk to other players about this. I say this because you'll have to make a decision if it's worth being in the campaign or not afterwards. And this can be hard because this is a group that has other games in it, and that will cause strain, but if you feel like you're being slighted, then you have to talk about it with your DM. And if that doesn't work, well, the best I could say is walk away from this campaign. That's really the best advice I can give you, and while it may cause strain in other games, you really don't have much of a choice. With that over, why don't we take some time to look at some fan art? This day's fan art comes J Manor Animation, and I gotta say, I really needed this. Life and emotions can really take their toll on people, and I'm no exception. So getting fan art like this really helps out, and really got me back into making videos for this channel. So thank you so much. And as such, be sure to show love to the artists who made this for me with the link down below. Thank you again, my friend. I'm Sweeps, I'm logging out, and see you guys later!